Hiya lovely human, I'm Maz and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be showing you the step-by-step process of me making my largest vase to date. So I always start by weighing out my clay and wedging it. When I'm using as much clay as this, it can be hard work to get it wedged and ready to go. I always weigh out extra balls to make sure I'm prepared for any unforeseen clay disasters. My plan for this vase is to give it a rounded body with a flared neck. I find this style with the flared neck works well for displaying flowers. I work in stoneware clay, which is fired at high temperatures, making it more durable. This is perfect for me and the type of pottery I like to create, which is both decorative and functional. I start the throwing process off by centering my clay, something that gets more challenging the more clay you use. I use my hands to apply pressure to the base of the clay to force it to rise up, becoming thinner and taller. I have to use a lot of water and keep my wheel spinning fast during this step. Once I've brought the clay up, it's time to bring it back down. I then repeat this process as many times as I need to, bring the clay up and down until I'm happy that the clay is central on the wheel head. Once it's central, I start throwing the inside of my vase by creating a hole in the middle and using my thumbs to widen it. When I'm happy with the inside, I move on to throwing the sides of my vase. Although I want a curved shape, at this point I keep the sides straight as I focus on building the height of the vase. I love throwing larger like this. It is more satisfying in a lot of ways, but I also find it requires more focus, and I can sometimes catch myself holding my breath because I've become so absorbed in what I'm doing. Now I've got the height, I start shaping. I always shape bottom upwards as I find leaving the rim until last helps provide some structure and support to the piece. Once I'm happy with the vase, I take a sharp tool and tidy up the base. Then I use a wire to slice underneath it, so it'll be easier to remove from the back when it dries. So day one ended up going pretty well. I avoided any clay disasters and I ended up with 5 large vases, so yeah, I was feeling pretty pleased with myself. After a night's sleep and some decent drying time for my vase, I unwrap my pieces to see if they are ready to be trimmed. As I inspect my vase's base, I'm very pleased to discover it's ready to go back on my wheel. I use my fingers to strike the side of my vase to tap centre it, a technique used to get your piece central on the wheel head. This was actually my first time tap centering a piece this large, but I was very pleased to discover its weight seemed to fall in my favour and it didn't take long to get it central. Once the vase is secured to the wheel, it's time to get trimming. It might seem a bit odd, but I tap the base to help get a feel for how thin it is. It helps me to stop trimming away too much and weakening or even splitting the base, which, yes, has happened to me more than once. I really wanted to give my vase more of an ornamental base, as I knew I would be painting it in a highly decorative style, like I paint pretty much most of my pieces. I add a lot of detail into the painting, and yeah, I just felt like having more of a ornamental curved base to the piece would really help sort of complement the design I was planning to do. And finally, to add a little bit of texture to the base, I included this decorative swirl to finish. Before I'm ready to take the vase off the wheel, I just tidy up around the base by using this metal kidney tool to burnish the bottom and to give it a nice smooth finish. Now I've finished trimming it, it's time to free my vase from the wheel. What do you think of the base now it's finished? Let me know in the comments. Over the next week or so, my vase was just pretty much left to dry out in my studio. Then I took it for its first firing, called a bisque firing. Because I currently use a local kiln firing service, I have to wait a few days before being able to collect my pieces. I decided to use some of this time to decide how I wanted to paint my vase. I've been really enjoying limiting myself to just blue and white underglazes, which is what I used to paint my pottery. In the past, I've always used a lot of colours, but have lately been experimenting with just limiting myself to blue and white. Some of my love for this colour scheme comes from seeing my grandparents' wedding china proudly on display on their dresser throughout my childhood. Today, it still sits there proudly in all its ornate blue and white glory, but now it's complemented by other blue and white pieces my nan has collected over the years to decorate the rest of the house. I wanted this piece to tell a story, so decided to paint 3 scenes on the vase, which would tell a narrative as it was turned. If you're familiar with some of my previous ceramic art, you might have noticed I love to create designs centered around these sun and moon characters. That is who I decided I wanted to feature on this vase and tell the story. Once I've collected my vase from its bisque firing, it's time to start painting it, which is both one of my favourite steps in my pottery process and my longest. I paint all my pieces by hand using paintbrushes, and as this is my largest vase I've made to date, with a sizable surface area, you can bet it's going to take a while. But before we get into it, I want you to have a go at guessing how long this vase will take me to paint. Grab a notepad or open the notes app on your phone and write down how many hours you think it will take to paint, and no cheating by skipping ahead to the end. Well, I can't really stop you from doing that, but just, don't. So once I had painted my entire vase in white underglaze for the base colour, I moved on to adding my design in blue. I wanted to create a sort of trim around the top of the vase to frame the illustration. Because I made this so tiny, for reasons I could not tell you, this took a lot of patience to complete. And I'm not gonna lie, I did curse my previous artistic decision making quite a few times during the process. After that, I moved on to the rest of the design and outlining my characters in 3 scenes. So I'm actually working upstairs in my spare bedroom of my house, which we call the craft room, because it is very, very rainy outside, and I started painting this vase inside, and I'm a little bit anxious about transporting it through to my studio, plus it's a bit chilly as well, and I've got my nice central heating in here. So I've been working on this larger vase this week, which I feel like my camera filter isn't allowing me to show up close. So I've been sticking along with my white and blue theme for this design, just having a bit of an experiment around with my sort of celestial characters that I've created, which is the sun and the moon on here. And I had a little bit of fun playing around with some ideas in my sketchbook, just sort of working on how I'm gonna decorate this piece. So my idea for this is to do another story style vase. So I'm gonna have 3 different scenes as you go around the vase, which tell a little love story between my sun and my moon character. Being non-binary myself, I love to create characters that resonate with me. So both my sun and moon characters are genderqueer in their own unique ways. Gender-affirming care scars are not something I see represented very often, and so by creating characters such as my moon character, it's a way for me to feel I am creating representation in my art which marginalised communities such as mine can see themselves in. Hiya! So you might be able to tell from my hair that yes, a little bit of time has passed since I filmed the rest of this video. Yeah, just basic stuff getting in the way. But you know, that's the beauty of YouTube. You can just film the ending whenever you need to. So that's what we're doing now. So after all of that painting, it's time for me to finally reveal how long this vase actually took me to paint. It took me a grand total of 9 hours and 20 minutes to paint. Now, I appreciate I said for you to write it down in hours, so if you've guessed 9 hours, you are bang on it and well done for correctly guessing. If you pop 10 or 8, pretty impressed that you guessed that close. But yeah, let me know what you guessed in the comments. I'd really like to know how far off you were. Let me know if you were surprised by how long it took or if you feel like you were expecting it to take longer. But yeah, I'd just love to know your thoughts. So regards the little story on this vase, I'm kind of starting off with the two characters separate. So we've got a little scene with my little moon character in there, holding their little heart. Then we've got our little sun character over here. We've got a little vase full of flowers and they're also holding a little heart. And then on the final scene, as you turn the vase, you can see that I've got my sun and my moon character together and they've taken a half from each of that heart and have placed it together to make a whole, meant to symbolise their love for each other. I did say it was going to be a love story, so yeah, there was always going to be an element of soppiness there. So if you're wondering about next steps, what happens next is I basically dip glaze this vase. So the way that I do that is it's as it sounds, I just dip it in a really big bucket of glaze and then I have to take it off for its final firing, which is called a glaze firing. So please let me know what you thought of the design in the comments. I'd really love to know your thoughts. Yeah, that is the video. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.